Let us open our Bibles once again to the book of Deuteronomy, and I'll read once again verse 19 and verse 20. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19 and 20. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live, that thou mayest love the Lord thy God, and that thou mayest obey his voice, and that thou mayest cleave unto him, for he is thy life, and the length of thy days, that thou mayest dwell in the land which the Lord sware unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give them. As you can see, today's message is titled, Therefore Choose Life. Therefore Choose Life. Our text this morning is the end part of Moses' solemn appeal to the people of Israel to make a choice, to make a wise choice, and to make the right choice. Now, as you notice in verse 19, he mentioned about, I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. And then he goes on to say, therefore, choose life. That's where I get today's title of today's message. Yes, Moses here is making this last and final appeal to the people of Israel to make a choice, to make a wise choice, and to make the right choice. Now, oftentimes, what we hear today is what? Make the best choice. Now, be very careful, because the best choice that you make may not be the right choice. Be very careful. We always love to hear, oh, that's the best choice. Ayaw mga kaibigan, don't fall into the trap, because even the very best choice that you make may not be the right choice. Now, this is what we oftentimes hear in our time. Nowadays, we hear of people who follow your heart, whatever your heart says. Same thing. Make the best choice. Careful. Careful. Yes, right before our eyes are a good variety of choices. Kung maingon pa nato, it's like a buffet. Nga diin, you have been given the freedom to what? Make a choice. But you know what? Sa ato ang Kristo anong pagkinabuhi, it is oftentimes not about our best choice. And that is what Moses here is telling the people of Israel. He is making an appeal to the people of Israel to make a choice, to make a wise choice, and to make the right choice. Take away the best choice, because oftentimes what we consider best may not be good for us. What we consider to be the best may not be the right choice for us. Now, as you may have observed in our responsive scripture reading a while ago, Deuteronomy 30 is a solemn call to making a choice between life and death, and blessing and cursing. Ato nang nabasa kaganiha in verse 19. In fact, even as early as verse 15, this is what we read. See, I have set before thee this day life and good, and then what? Death and evil. Now, as you notice, we are considering this passage from Deuteronomy chapter 30. Deuteronomy chapter 31, Moses is commending the people and exhorting the people to be strong to enter the promised land under Joshua. Nga naman, kay niining tumura, it will no longer be Moses, but there will be a turnover of commands in which Joshua would have to bring the children of Israel across the Jordan into the promised land. So what we are actually seeing in here is part of Moses' parting words, his farewell speech to the people. In fact, as I have said, in here, he is making a solemn appeal to the people. In other words, kanabang mga pamilin-bilin ba? Parting words. And you know, parting words are oftentimes serious and solemn appeal. Ngayon, na ay mga panugon si Moses. Maingon pa nato, o sa Tagalog pa ni, ang mga huling habilin. Because Moses may no longer have the time to say these things to the children of Israel. Obviously, we know very well that in Deuteronomy chapter 34, it records for us how indeed Moses died and was murdered. And so as we look at it, makita nato din here that Moses indeed was calling the attention of the people. Here onwards, I will no longer be with you. And instead, Joshua will bring you over to Jordan and into the promised land. But let me give you this piece of advice. And what is that piece of advice? That you make a choice, and that you make a wise choice, and that you make a right choice. In fact, the right choice, as you can see, is what? Therefore, choose life. But as we go along this message this morning, mga kaisunan, yes, Moses was nearing the end of his life, and the people of Israel was preparing to enter the promised land under Joshua. And in here, we see him giving his piece of advice, or perhaps a fatherly counsel, or perhaps a kind of guidance for them to consider. Reminding the people that yes, as you carry on with life, as you carry on with your journey towards the promised land, every day of your life, you will have to face choices. But looking at this verse, two verses this morning, mga kaitunan, I want us to take a closer look at these verses nga naman, because in these two verses, we can find three important assertions that Moses gave for the people of Israel to consider. These are three important pronouncements, or shall I say principles, that surely will make a difference in the lives of the people of Israel as they enter the promised land and settle therein. In other words, kining tulok ang mga butang na iyahang ibutsulti dinhi would surely make an impact or make a difference in how they would live their life and in how they would indeed enjoy their life as they enter the promised land and settle therein. And looking at this, it is my prayer that we also would consider these principles or assertions in order for us to be able to live perhaps a victorious life, especially in these most trying times. Now, look with me at verse 19. And firstly, I want to bring to your attention how Moses here brings to the people of Israel this one assertion, the choice that we have to make. Now, Moses here is telling the people, fellow children of Israel, it's just like Moses declaring to the children of Israel the truth of the matter that life is filled with choices. And so, the first thing that I like to see here is that there is a choice that we have to make. Moses here declares to the Israelites that life will be filled with choices. Yes, Moses has had his time making choices and decisions on and behalf of, for and on behalf of the children of Israel. But hereafter, as the children of Israel prepares themselves to cross over Jordan and into the promised land under the leadership of Joshua, Moses is giving them this piece of advice, one of which would include, please remember that there's a choice that you have to make. Yes, as you can see in verse 19, Moses mentions about life and death, then of blessing and cursing. Now, kung imo tanawon, yes, gihatay ni Moses din na sa matag adlaw sa inyong kinabuhi, you have to make a choice. And in these choices, it will surely bring about a totally different consequence. Look with me again in verse 19. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death. So, gihanay na ko ninyo, life and death. And then what? Blessing and cursing. Now, kung imong tanawon, makita gid nato diha, Moses did not just give them a variety of choice. More than just a variety of choice, Moses made that clear statement that in all these choices, therefore choose life. In other words, wala niya biyae ang katawan sa Israel to make a decision for their own selves, but rather, he gave it to them that in all these choices, this is the right choice. And he gave it to them. Murabag, iyahang gisiguro na iyahang masulti kanila o unsa ang gusto. Dili lang na masulti niya kanila o unsay pwede nilang kapilian. Are we following, mga kaigsunan? Yes, sometimes when we talk to people and even among us, even our children, may mga panahon nga kita ng mga ginikanan, perhaps we have been occupied and been thinking of something else. Nga, dali kayo nato i-dismiss ang atong mga bata ngayon nga, ay ikaw, dako naman ka. You know, it's failure on our part as a parents. If what our children often hear from us as, ay kayo, pag-ikaw, dako naman ka. We are to be responsible to really guide our children and to tell them what is the right choice. And that is what we see here. Moses laid down for them the choices. There is a choice of life and death, and there is a choice of blessing and cursing. Yet he pressed upon them, therefore, choose life. Because when you choose life, you choose blessing. When you choose death, you choose cursing. Because in every choice that we make, there will always be a consequence. There will always be a consequence. And that is our first point, that Moses here is bringing to our attention that in our life journey, there will always be the choice that we have to make. And as we have read here, Moses made it clear that therefore choose life. Make a choice, make a wise choice, make the right choice. Now, look closely in verse 19 and notice how indeed Moses bring to their attention his invocation. Now, invocation, and what is the invocation? Where is the invocation here? Verse 19, Moses said, I call upon heaven and earth to record this day against you. So in here, makita nato that what Moses was telling them is not just about telling them for the sake of just telling them. It is a solemn declaration in which he invoked heaven and earth as witness. Moses declared that heaven and earth were witness to their decisions that day and throughout the remainder of their lives. It's a solemn appeal in which he invoked God being witness. And notice here how he goes on to lay out before them. Heaven and earth bears witness of what choice that you will have to make concerning your life. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. In other words, this is not just about a plain and simple parting words of Moses. It's a solemn parting words. At the end of the day, the people cannot blame him for not telling them these things. That as and when things will not work out for them as they cross the Jordan and enter the promised land, they can never even think of blaming Moses. Matawa mong dumisulti ani Moses. Wa man gid siya maghisgot na mo ani. That is what Moses is actually doing here. He is performing the last and final duty and responsibility that he may have had for the people of Israel, to prepare them to enter the promised land. This is very much what we need sa atuang panahon karon mga kaigsunan. We need to be reminded and constantly be reminded na sa matag adlaw sa atuang pagkinabuhi, sa atuang pagkibisog, sa atuang pagkiglimbasog, there will be choices that we have to make. But in whatever choices that we have to make, we just have to see to it that we make a wise choice and that we make the right choice. In fact, that is what Moses emphasized here. There's life and death, there's blessing and cursing, therefore, choose life. In other words, iya yung ipasabot nga ito nila. Nga mo ni siya kapilian, pero ako'y kamo, o ako ninyo, kanimo'y piliya, kaya mo ni magdaan ninyo kaayuhan. Yes, Moses laid down before them choices, life or death, blessing or a cursing. No man would decide for them. Each and every individual were to choose his own life. But as you can see, even when at the end of the day they're going to make a decision for themselves, Moses gave them a clue. Therefore, choose life. You know, mga kaigsunan, as we reflect upon these things, like the people of Israel, we too would have to face the same reality. Every single day of our lives, we make choices. And there is a need for us to be very careful in making our choices. Gani kung ato ang gimlantaon, ato ang kinabuhi, o asa takaron mga kaigsunan, unya kung atong balik-balikan ang ato ang kinabuhi, sa wa patang makaila sa ato ang Ginoong Hesukristo, I'm sure you would agree with me that much of what we experience in life today, either we enjoy it or we endure it as a consequence of our past choices. I say it again. Much of what we experience in our life today, either we enjoy or we endure, these are but consequences of the choices that we make. O kana na sama sa gihimo ni Moses, yes, he bring to them the picture, the reality that there will be choices that you would have to make. But let me tell you, choose life. You have to make a choice. You have to make a wise choice. You have to make the right choice. Nga naman mga kaitunan, the book of Proverbs tells us in 2 occasions, there is a way that seems right to a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. And this is very interesting. Nga naman? Because this verse appears twice in the book of Proverbs. And as we often say, pagka mga sitwasyon na samang nangyari, that should tell us and remind us that perhaps the Lord purposed it that it appears twice because these are important principles. In Proverbs 14 verse 12, we read this, there is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. And you will find it again in Proverbs 16 and verse 25. There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. Di ba tinuod? Sa pila ka mga higayon sa ato ang kinabuhi, nga nagtumang kita, kay kumbinsido kita sa itong kasing-kasing, kay mo ginimbutan na mo'y makadag kaayuhan sa itong kinabuhi, only to realize sometime later that it only brought you much pain, sorrow, and what? Frustrations and misery in life. There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. Now, oftentimes, as we often hear among people, we love to gamble. Sige lang, bahala na. Now, God's people, you should know better. Gone are the days that we will gamble ourselves. Why should we gamble ourselves in all these things? That we have a clear guide. Diha sa pulong sa Ginoo. Ganit, in this verse that we are considering this morning, yes, Moses gave a variety of choice, but he did not leave the people to make a decision for themselves. He made it strongly, emphasize it to them. Therefore, choose life. And there we see his admonition. Therefore, choose life. Moses see to it that he is able to tell them not just about the variety of choice, but to really stress on them the wise and the right choice that they would have to make. And that is what? Life rather than death. And look here, mga kaisan, look with me in verse 19. Because when Moses gave this admonition to the people that therefore choose life, he is actually giving it to them not just for their own sake, but for the sake of their future generation. Now, look with me again in verse 19. Therefore, choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live. Nga naman, kaya ang mga desisyon bitaw nga ato ang paghimuon karon, ayaw yung pagtuo nga ikaw ray mo suffer o mo enjoy o kung sa'y consequence niya na. If you indeed have made a wrong choice, dili na ikaw mo suffer. The next generation also would suffer. But should you, by the grace of God, is able to do and make a right choice, dili lang ikaw mag-enjoy. Ikaw o ang imong mga future generation. And that is what Moses here emphasized. Therefore, choose life, not just for yourself, but look here, that both you and thy seed, ang imong mga kaanakan, ug ang imong mga kaliwatan would live. Yes, He is urging these people that the choice that they would have to make today and in their present time and in their present life will surely have that lasting effect, whether it be a good or bad effect, to their future generation. That is why he is urging them to choose life so that they and their children would live. He is actually telling them here that their choices is not just for themselves, but also for their children and for the future generation. And this is indeed true to us, mga kaibigan. Kita nga mga ginikanan, if we choose to obey, and if we choose to follow, if we choose to serve the Lord, surely our children would look up to us and would follow the examples that we have set before them. And so, if we choose to serve the Lord, now, both thou and thy seed may live. But if you choose to abandon and forsake the Lord, now you cannot expect your children to follow. Yes, there is indeed a variety of choice, but Moses gave the people the right choice. The same can also be found in the Gospels. In the Lord's Sermon on the Mount, we read in Matthew chapter 7, verse 13 to 14, Enter ye in that straight gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because straight is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Now, can you see the similarity? That in here, the Lord is giving us also a picture of a choice between two gates, a straight gate and a wide gate. Now, what about these two gates? Ingon diha, wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Then, straight is the gate, narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. So there are two gates that you have to choose. Yet the Lord made it very clear, enter ye the straight gate. In other words, like what Moses did, Jesus gave us two choices. And yet, he made it clear that in these two gates, you choose to enter the straight gate. You know, mga kaibigan, we can only thank the Lord that He not only tells us of the choices, but teaches us and guides us to the wise and the right choice. The same as what Moses did to the children of Israel. He calls to them to make a choice. He calls upon them to make the wise choice and to make the right choice. Again, be very careful with the best choice. Chose the right choice over the best choice. Now, as we reflect upon these things, mga kaibigan, these are indeed what would make a big impact sa tuwang kinabuhi. That each and every time we see and find ourselves needing to make a choice, be very careful of the choices that you would have to make. As Moses here tells us, yes, as we carry on with life, as we journey on with life, this is one reality that we have to face. There will be choices that we have to make, and the choices that we have to make will have its effect and impact not only upon our own lives. Dili lang ikaw ang maapektahan if it's a wrong choice. Dili lang sa ikaw mabulahan if it is a right choice. But just the same, bear this in mind, as Moses told the people of Israel, There will always be a choice to make. And in each and every time that you have to make a choice, see to it that you go for the wise choice and you go for the right choice. Now, moving on, mga kaigsunan. In addition to the choice that we have to make, Moses here brings to our attention the commitment that we have to take. The choice that we have to make. Secondly, the commitment that we have to take. Now, where can we find that? Look with me on the first part of verse 20. That thou mayest love the Lord thy God, and that thou mayest obey his voice, and that thou mayest cleave unto him. There you would find the commitment that we have to take. Making the right choice, Moses is bringing us to another level. If you choose to follow the Lord, commit yourself into this. And what is that commitment that we have to take here? Firstly, we need to love the Lord our God. This is in the area of our devotion. That thou mayest love the Lord thy God. Now, as you can see in here, Moses is calling upon the people. Yes, I have given you the choice, therefore choose life. Now I'm giving you the commitment that you would have to take. See to it that you will continue and continue in loving the Lord your God. This is the next level. This would only be possible if you would choose life. And to those of you who chose life, who chose to follow the Lord, who chose to serve the Lord, need to have this commitment of devotion unto the Lord, of loving him with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind, with all our strength. Literally, loving God with our entire being. Wholeheartedly. In fact, this is the very first great commandment, right? When Jesus was asked, what is the greatest commandment of all? Jesus replied, thou shalt love the Lord your God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. Yes, this is the commitment that we have to take. In the area of our devotion, we must love the Lord our God with our entire being. Then there's the area of our submission. Now look with me again in verse 20. That thou mayest love the Lord thy God. That is our devotion, right? The next part. That thou mayest obey his voice. There you will find our committed submission. We must commit ourselves to submitting to him. And how to submit unto him? That we obey his voice. Moses knew very well how the people of Israel under his leadership have rebelled against God. Ganit kung inyo pang mahinumduman, in the early part of their wilderness wandering, nasalihan tuwa siya dito in Mount Sinai, and the Lord gave him the law. Remember what the children of Israel, even under his brother Aaron, did? They made for them what? Golden, molten calf. Yes, Moses knew very well what is in the heart of these people. Although, kung anong mahinumduman, these people that he was addressing here, they are the children of Israel that is below 20. Remember, ang katong mga karaan diyot nga gikan sa Egypt were not qualified to enter the promised land. And yet, Moses knows very well that there is indeed that heart of rebellion among everyone. That he reminded them. Thou mayest love the Lord your God in the area of devotion, and that thou mayest obey his voice in the area of submission. Yes, because Moses knew very well how our heart is prone to wander. Moses have dealt with these people in their rebellion and disobedience in the past, that he calls upon them here obey the voice of God, submitting their lives in obedience to Him. Kung ato ka ng pag-alantawon mga kaigsunan, this sounds easy and simple to understand, right? That thou mayest love the Lord your God, and thou mayest observe and keep His voice. Obey His voice. Yes, sounds easy, seems easy to understand. Yet, look at yourself. How often you find yourself struggling to obey, to submit? More often than not, we don't find any qualms and we don't find any problem obeying God in His Word for as long as it suits up our own agenda. But in those times that it doesn't, more often than not, we chose to hear our own voice rather than God's voice. Look at yourself. Think for a moment. How often do you find yourself bargaining? Sige lang, kasabot ka ng Ginoo. Ganit, sometimes we would even joke among ourselves. Sige lang, 1 John 1:9. No. Because you will have no qualms of sinning against God. So, if you indeed are committed to Job's life, may you also be committed to this devotion and to this kind of submission. Look again. That thou mayest love the Lord thy God, and that thou mayest what? Obey His voice. Commitment that we have to make and to take in the area of our devotion and in the area of our submission. And then look with me as we move on with our text. And that thou mayest cleave unto Him. This in the area of our communion. Devotion, submission, communion. Now, how is that communion described here? That thou mayest cleave unto Him. Now, interesting kayo because the word that Moses used here is the word cleave. The very same word that is used in that verse that speaks about man would have to leave his father and mother and would have to cleave. Yes, this is the same word that God used as He spoke to Adam about cleaving to his wife Eve. And the idea behind this word is that two metals being welded together. It has the idea of clinging to one another in a persistent way. And this is the kind of commitment, this is the level of commitment that Moses is telling us here. The commitment that we have to take. The choice that we have to make. Choose life. The commitment that we have to take in the area of devotion, that thou mayest love the Lord your God with your entire being, that thou what? Mayest obey His voice in terms of submission, and in here, that thou mayest cleave unto Him. Oftentimes, we hold on to God's promises that He will never leave us nor forsake us. But I wonder if we also have that kind of commitment that, Lord, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Yes, we take comfort. Sometimes it sounds ironic na naman Even when people, God's people who have long abandoned the Lord and gone back to the world, still will hold on, Lord, you will never leave us nor forsake us. When all along you have been abandoning the Lord. But thanks be unto God, because He is always gracious and merciful, that even when you may have long gone astray, He will always be there. If you will but call upon Him in repentance. But the point I'd like us to consider in here is, yes, Moses here is calling us to that level of commitment, that we would cleave with Him, that we would stick it out with Him. Very much like husband and wife when they are wedded together, they come together in holy matrimony, they would have to take that vow in prosperity and adversity, in sickness and in health, in richer or in poorer, till death us do part. Yes, that is the kind of communion that we must maintain with the Lord, through thick and thin. And that is what Moses has been telling the people of Israel. In the area of their devotion, in the area of their submission, and in the area of their communion. Reflect upon this kind of relationship, very personal, very intimate kind of a relationship that can only be found other than Christ and His church, can only be found between husband and wife. Remember, in Ephesians, Paul said, husband, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And this is the kind of commitment that we ought to have with God, that we would cleave unto Him, that we are to cling unto God, to seek Him continually unhindered in our fellowship, our communion, our service, even so in our worship unto Him. So padayon nato nga pagkatubang sa kinabuhi, mga kaigsunan, even in these trying times, difficult times, strange times, disturbing times, dangerous times, you can think of whatever adjective you would want to include. Ako nagtuo that these are the assertions that still remains needful sa ato ang mga kinabuhi. The choice that we have to make, the commitment that we have to make. Now, look at yourself, look at ourselves. It's been 4 months na nahikawan kita sa ato ang physical, corporate, bodily gathering together. Yet, initially, just when we think na murag mahinder ta, mahikawan ta, na murag malimitahan kita. True, yes, those are valid thoughts and concerns. Yet God in His wisdom, God in His grace and in His mercy has opened us this door of opportunity na kita makapadayon diha sa atua mga pagpanalagad kaniya, and that even when we may not be able to come together, but just the same, we are able to go about this commitment in the area of our devotion, in the area of our submission. Nasa matag adlaw nga Domingo, we find ourselves seeking after Him and coming before His presence. It may not be in a usual manner, but just the same. Thanks be unto God, kay siya mismo naghatag ka nato niini nga paagi o pamaagi na dili kita niya mahikawan sa maong pribileyo to be able to come before His presence. And for each one of you, our dearly beloved brothers and sisters in the Lord, to be able to hear the preaching of God's word. be able to sing together with us, and be able to pray for one another, and even to be gathered together in the presence of the Lord. Think about all these things. The choice that we have to make, choose life, choose God, the commitment that we have to take. Again, in the remaining portion of verse 20, I now bring to your attention how Moses called the people to what? To the Creator that we should seek. Completing our 3 points, the choice that we have to make, the commitment that we have to take, the Creator that we should seek. Now, look with me in verse 20 again. That thou mayest love the Lord thy God, that thou mayest obey his voice, and thou mayest cleave unto him. Why? For he is thy life, and the length of thy days, that thou mayest dwell in the land which the Lord sware unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give them. Completing this statement, Moses reminded the people that the Lord that they would love is the Lord that is the source and the giver of life. Therefore what? He is the Creator that we should seek. Look with me on that portion that he says, he is thy life. You should love the Lord your God. You should obey his voice. You should cleave unto him because he is thy life. Nakita niyo? For he is thy life. Moses here strongly declared to the people of Israel that God is our life. Nakita na ninyo? He is thy life. Yes, oftentimes we hear that he is the giver of life. Now, that is not incorrect. He is the giver of life. But, to be very more specific, he's not just the giver of life. He himself is our life. Now, what is the point? Listen carefully. Every living creature in this world, for that matter, all of humanity that is alive on this earth, they may have that kind of life, physical existence. But you know, mga kaibigan, they have physical existence, and in a sense, they may have life, but not the kind of life that you and I enjoy, and together with those who are in Christ. Because this is the kind of life that God has promised. The kind of life that is no mere physical existence, but a kind of life that has meaning, the kind of life that has joy, the kind of life that has security, the kind of life that has peace. Gani, if you can turn your Bibles for a while, in 1 John chapter 5 and verse 12, we read this. He that had the Son had life, and he that had not the Son of God had not life. Yes, there is no real life apart from God. What the rest of the people of the world may have, nothing but a physical existence apart from God. And they can never and will never experience that kind of life that God had promised unto those who would come to him and seek him. Remember what Jesus said in John 14 verse 6? I am the way, the truth, and the life. What is the kind of life? It's a kind of life that is in a different plane, a different level. It's no mere existence like there is a sign of life, there is breathing, there is movement. It's a different kind of life. A life in a higher plane. A kind of life that only God can give. In fact, Paul mentions about this in Colossians 3 and verse 4. When Christ, he said, who is our life, shall appear, then ye shall also appear with him in glory. You can be sure that this is no ordinary kind of life, like the kind of life that every human being enjoy in this earth. And that is what Moses here emphasized. You shall love the Lord your God. You shall obey his voice. You shall cleave unto him, because he is thy life. What else? What else can we learn from here? Not only that he is our life, not only that he is our source of life. Also notice here that he is the sustainer of life. He is the sustainer of life. Look at me. He is thy life. And look at the next part. And the length of thy days. Look at that. The length of thy days. You know, mga kaibigan, sa akong panahon sa kalibutan, you know, I have come across different kanang ingon pa nato philosophies in life, or kanang gitawag ba nato nga kanang mga urban legend or what. You know, I'm sure bisag kamo nagasugat mo nini na ang ubang ingon nga ang mga tao kuno nga medyo dagkugdunggan tag-as o kinabuhi unya kani siya kay mura og tag-as og kanang kulang mo ingon adugay ning mamatay kay taas og kamo. You know, all this kind of mga observations ba nga din maghisgot may tungod sa kaning longevity of life and length of days. Kanya, gani, of course, sige tagadungog niya na masamang damo matagal mamatay. Sa iyo, mga kaibigan, that our life is in the hands of God. Look with me. Moses, he said, the length of thy days. Our life is in the hands of God. God not only provides life, he also preserves and sustains life. The people of Israel were challenged to live their lives in light of this truth. What is it about this truth? Na ang matag segundo, matag oras, ug matag adlaw nga ato ang enjoy nining ang kinabuhi is actually a gift of God. It is actually a gift of God. Each day, hindi is a gift. Nagikan sa Ginoo. And therefore, angay lamang that each day of our life must be lived in honor and service unto him and for his glory. The thought about the children of Israel, that they have been preserved thus far, Moses reminds them, cleave on to the Lord your God, for he is your life, and he is the what? Thy sustainer. He is the length of thy days. Going through this time of pandemic, some of us may have been scared, mindful. How are we able to survive? Or will we be able to make it through? We will be able to carry on with life. Yes. Di na ito malikayan, makakunahuna sa takong mga inaniana. But may you be encouraged today, this morning, that we need to be reminded of the Creator that we should seek. For he is our life. and He is our length of days. With this understanding, it should bring us to that right kanang perspective sa kinabuhi na as the Lord protects, as the Lord preserves, as the Lord would still have His purpose in me and through me. Life goes on. For after all, it is the Lord that will call us home. That is how we often describe our death, right? The Lord called him home. Yes. And this should comfort our hearts niining kabuntagon mga kaigsunan. That He is indeed our sustainer, preserver of life. Now coming to the end, I want us to see here, He is thy life, length of days, that thou mayest dwell in the land which the Lord sware unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, and to give them. Now, what is in here for us? Moses is telling the people here, whatever may await you as you cross over Jordan, yes, you may encounter wars and you may have to fight battles one after another, but take comfort because the Lord will see to it that you will dwell in the land. Look with me in the last part of verse 20, that thou mayest dwell in the land which the Lord sware unto thy fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and to Jacob, to what? To give them. Meaning, it may not come easy for you to enter the promised land. Na diin, inikabot ninyo dito, muhawa na lang dahil ang mga tao na namuyo dito, kaya gisaad ka na sa Ginoo diha ninyo. No. In fact, we all know very well that they have to fight battle one after another. But in the midst of it all, and at the end of it all, we have read for ourselves that indeed they have gained the promised land and they have dwelt therein according to what the Lord has promised. Remember in our last Friday's online fellowship, all the way my Savior leads me. Now think about the people of Israel. The Lord took them out of Egypt. True? And then what? They spent 40 years in the wilderness wandering. True? They fought battles one after another. True? And then what? Now they're about to cross the Jordan under Joshua. Yes. It may have been a long and winding road that they have traveled, but just the same, at the end of the day, they were able to make it to the promised land. And so it is here in our text. Ngayon, gidasig ni Moses ang katawan sa Israel. Yes. It's now your turn to carry on with your journey into the promised land. I will no longer be with you. But one thing I want to tell you is that regardless of whatever challenges that you may face and encounter, the Lord will see to it that you will dwell in the land, because it is the land that the Lord sware unto your fathers. Moses reminded them of the covenant promise that God made to Abraham. The land they were about to inhabit has been promised to them hundreds of years before. Nga kung ato ako ni nga i-apply sa itong kinabuhi at the end of our life's journey here on earth. Remember what the Lord said? In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. Go to prepare a place for you. If I go to prepare a place, I will come again. I will receive you as my son. Na kung atong lantaw ng atong kahintang, times are tough, times are rough. But take comfort, mga Christians, as we ponder upon the life of the children of Israel in here. Greetings, stands up. Bear this in mind, because it will surely make a difference in our life. The choice that we have to make, the commitment that we have to take, remember the devotion, the submission, the communion, and then what? The Creator that we have to see. Man would always have that kind of mindset that he spells out his destiny and that he is in control and the captain of his ship, the director of his destiny. The truth of the matter is, it is God who directs our path and provides us the blessing that we enjoy along the way, and He is the one that will see to it that we will make it to our final destination. But we have our responsibility. Remember, the choice that we have to make, the commitment that we have to take, the Creator that we should see, and so on. Therefore, choose life.